first, let's start off. I'd like this to be interactive. I know Josh and Mark want to interactive. It's imperative because we feed off of your energy. We know you're listening and not actually doing emails during our call because this is an important topic today. And we're getting into some specifics and details and a great offer at the end that's going to prepare you to make this the best opportunity we have seen in years. We all went through, change is good. Change is only good though if you prepare for it. And we have the two best dudes in the industry to help you prepare for it. So you're excited about it. I'm actually excited. Our team's excited about it. We had Josh yesterday with a group of our individuals that are pumped because they're taking action. They're being proactive and they're going to be prepared. And today's about this NAR settlement you might have heard of. Maybe. Jesus, it's all you hear about. But there's a difference of being prepared or not prepared or saying, oh, I understand it. But do you? And so today we're going to go into the nuts and bolts a little bit, but remember this is interactive. So if you go to the bottom, you'll see reactions. Click on that button and I'd love to see a bunch of thumbs ups and hearts and clap, whatever you like. Let's see it. Look at that. There we go. Doesn't that make you feel more energetic right off the bat, Mark? Right?
Yes. It's so much better than just talking to a screen, that's for sure.
Exactly. So this is interactive and we welcome your questions. That's what's beautiful about this because more momentum is to keep your momentum going. We go to events, we get pumped up, we get motivated, inspired, and then life gets back in the way. That's the same with all salespeople. It's tough. We get shit thrown at us all the time. So by doing these weekly with the best of the best, like Josh and Mark, we keep you in the know today, not what was popular 6 months ago, 8 months ago, or 20 through 22 that we all know about and still talk about, but that's not relevant today. Sorry. One of the most relevant topics, though, is the NAR settlement. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Josh and Mark, two of the rock stars in our industry. We're talking leaders. They're in the trenches. They understand it, the coaching, Loan Atlas. I can't even give any more accolades other than they're rock stars and they know their stuff and they're honest and authentic. And that's what this show's all about. So without further ado, welcome Josh and Mark.
Thanks you so much, man. I don't know if I can live up to that intro, but we're glad to be here. And you said a lot of things right, which is just like the energy and the engagement is really going to help us power through what I think is one of the best opportunities that we've seen in a while, Josh.
Yeah, and that's where I think we should start. You know, Don, we talked a little bit yesterday around mindset as it relates to the Ryan Holiday book, The Obstacle is the Way. And I was thinking this morning, I was sitting down in my meditation, which preempted me to put my no days off shirt on today. And I was thinking like, you know, some form of pain or discomfort or failure or FUBAR causes all creativity and advancement. And I started thinking about Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. And it is that uncomfortable feeling or that pain that you're in that causes us to be creative and to find an alternative solution or a new way of doing things that ultimately ends up in an improvement in a process or in a species or what have you. And I think it's really important that everybody thinks a little bit about where we are in this cycle. And yes, there are some additional headwinds that are coming at us, such as NAR, such as I didn't love what happened with mortgage-backed securities this morning, but we have turned the corner as it relates to the cycle that we're in. And I believe we have entered the no days off phase. And what I mean by that is it is time to get after it. I'm someone who loves life balance. I'm someone who loves to, you know, call a day and have fun with my family. But what I mean by no days off is a mentality. Like it's, you know, if you were a Kobe Bryant fan, this is the Black Mamba time. Like it's overdrive. So let me share with you just a couple of things that I'm thinking about as it relates to how the market is moving. And then Mark, tie this down for us at the end, how this relates to coming into kind of the challenging, the opportunity we have with the NAR settlement. So look, this is probably not the first time you've all seen this, but the economy is slowing. We, according to the SOM rule, 100% accurate indicator going back to the 1960s when the unemployment rate rises 0.5% based on the previous 30 days, 90-day average. 100% of the time, you're already in a recession, and we have triggered the Somme rule. So if history is accurate and that holds true, we're going to see lower interest rates. And you see every time we see these gray bars, I'm assuming most of you have seen this slide before, you see a drastic reduction in mortgage rates. The cycle has turned. The pendulum of contraction has ended, and we're going into a more robust period. It is time to get after it. This is going to be the tailwind on our businesses rather than the headwind that we've been going into for the last couple of years. I was watching oh, by the way, Black Knight did this really cool analysis, and they said, look, for every 1% that a mortgage rate goes down, 5 million more Americans qualify to buy a home. That doesn't mean 5 million more Americans jump into the housing market. It just means 5 million more people qualify because you have greater housing affordability. So look, in recessions, what happens? A lot more people are qualified to buy. And not only are a lot more people qualified to buy, but now you have opportunities to refinance. So this is like a no days off type environment that we're going into. Like, let's just get after it. Let's just forget about the pain of the last couple of years. It's gone. New chapter. Time to kick ass again. Barry showed this slide yesterday in a presentation he did with Tim Brahim, and I thought it was incredible. So not only do we have those tailwinds from interest rates, but let's look what happened to LO population. In 2023, there were 223,000 originators that closed at least one loan. In the last 90 days, there has only been 153 originators to close a loan. That is a massive amount of attrition. And if you compared that to 2022, you'd even see more attrition. So we are seeing a time where we have tailwinds behind us. We have a lot less competition around us. And guess what? Our realtors are about to need us more than ever. And I think, and I'm going to turn it over to you here, Don and Mark, because I want you guys to jump in and give me your comments. There's going to be a moment in the not too distant future where a buyer's agent who's been in the business for 20 plus years, for the first time in their lives, they're going to slide a piece of paper across the table to a buyer. And that piece of paper is essentially going to say, we're in a relationship, you're hiring me for a job, and my compensation is $20,000. Yesterday, it was free. Yesterday, the seller paid it. But now you're on the hook for $20,000. And I think that's going to cause people more pause than a lot of buyers, a lot of buyer agents are really thinking it's going to. And this is front page news. New York Times, USA Today, every financial magazine that I read, all talking about the NAR settlement. I believe you're going to have sellers who say, rates are going down. There's not a lot of inventory in my area. Maybe we should just try to sell the home without offering a buyer compensation or less. So I think there's more challenges ahead for the real estate industry, which is another opportunity for us. So guys, what would you add or what do you think I got right or wrong there?
Well,
I'm leaving it to Mark.
Yeah, I definitely think the opportunity is there, right? I just in preparation for this and other presentations that I'm doing, called through a bunch of agents that I don't have the relationship with. Maybe they're cold or listing agents, and just saying, hey, Don, we're helping a lot of people with this NAR settlement. What are you hearing? Oh, really? You are? How are you doing that? Well, if somebody says that they don't, what's going to happen if the seller doesn't pay the commission? Do you know how to put it into the loan? Do you know how it can be financed? Do you know how we can add mortgage insurance? Do you know how we could raise the purchase price? Are you familiar with those strategies? Do you know, and do you feel confident around it? Does your lender partner? And it's like the easiest layup of all time. Every realtor, there's been no exception that I actually talk to is like, no, hey, can you email something like that over? That would be so helpful. They want and need this guidance. And I haven't seen them need us this much in a very long time. And so I just think that the opportunity, if you can be ahead of this, I mean, it's not difficult, right? Think of yourself as a buyer. What are your apprehensions are going to be? And then get ahead of it. Like predict, preempt, prevent, right? That's one of the things we have to do. So, hey, what are we going to do, Josh, if we get into a situation where the seller's not going to pay a commission? What's your plan then? Because hey, I gotta be straight with you, man. I can't afford to pay $20,000 out of my pocket for your commission. What's your answer to that? And if you guys can put together a coherent statement where when Josh asks that, I say, man, I'm so glad you brought that up because it's so important. And for years, our industry has just ignored this. I love the transparency and I love that you feel comfortable enough to ask the question. I've already thought of that. Let me show you 3 different ways that we're going to do this and how I'm going to protect you from having to bring that money out of pocket. It switches the conversation, right? From, hey, I have to pay $20,000 to let me show you how I've got your back. That's one approach to this problem that I think real estate agents struggle with. Like if you ask them the question, 9 out of 10 of them, they'll come up with something, but it's not rehearsed. They don't have it down pat. They certainly don't know enough about financing to feel confident. So I really believe that they're going to need us more than ever. And it's incumbent upon us right now to take this opportunity and go and forge new relationships and really show people our value. Because I think you are very, very valuable to your real estate partners right now. And I'm having trouble speaking, evidently.
No, you did well. You did well, Mark. You were very intelligent on that because that's beautiful, Mark, because that's why I was mentioned at the very beginning. I truly believe, and I know both of you do, believe that it's one of the best opportunities we've had in years. Agents in most cases, some realize our value, some don't. They just don't care. I mean, they're willing to hand out 3 cards, and we were in front of 35 agents just yesterday, Josh and I, and they actually are starting to understand that they need us. Like we asked that question and they're like, yeah, we get it. We do need you to help us through to navigate this because it's really hard for them to do it on their own. But Mark, what I love is instead of hiding from it, which never works, by the way, we've all tried that where you like, maybe I can hide my fees and, we all had to deal with it. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Dodd-Frank because we had to go from, we can charge wherever we want. The fees were kind of behind the scenes to, no, we have to disclose all our fees and what we make. And then we navigated through it, which made us level our game up to be better. So now you turn it around from a, shoot, I don't know how to handle that question to, I'm glad you asked. Let me explain my value. And if you know how to answer that, now you get the opportunity to explain your value versus, I don't know why I paid that person 24 grand or whatever it is. Because even if they don't ask the question, it's still there. They know there's some money being paid somewhere. Now you can share why you earned that kind of income.
And I think for me, it's, what resonates with me with what you said, Don, for me as a consumer, and Josh, I know you're completely different than I am as a consumer, but for me, it's an energy. It is an emotion, right? That's just how I make my decisions. And energetically, when I'm sitting, I'm sitting in rooms where these are really some of the top realtors in the country that I'm listening to coach their teams and go through. And it's a defense. The energy is defense. Oh, you asked me about my commission? Let me defend it back to you. And it's just a mistake. And so if there's one tactic I can tell you guys to do, it's to tell your realtors to embrace this. Like we were fighting the commission change, Don, when that first came back around. We thought our lives were going to end. We had no idea that it was going to be the biggest blessing ever in history. But if you change the energy by going, hey, you know what I think you should say in these situations? I'm so glad you asked. This change is amazing. It's bringing so much transparency to the industry, and there's a lot of confusion around it. Let's walk through how I can protect you against this happening. I know what you really want is to not have to pull this money out of your pocket. I've got 3 strategies that are going to help you do that. And let's walk through it. Does that sound good? Now you're on the same side of the table as your client because you're attacking what their fear is. It's a psychological game. And now instead of like, they can sense it immediately if you're like, well, yeah, here's everything that I do. And let me tell you how valuable I am. You need to get to the point where you're going to be able to articulate your value. I'm not saying that you don't need to, but first you need to establish that trust where that client knows that from your heart, what you care about is putting them in a great financial situation and keeping them from having to come out of their pocket with $20,000 now that there's a new settlement. And I think with that one small switch of frame and energy, you can truly show people that you care about them and that you care about their well-being and you want to keep them from that situation.
And Mark, Jordan asked, show me those strategies. So team, rest assured, we're going to go into the strategies that Mark showed. We're going to provide you a link to the total cost analysis to show you how we built these strategies. But what Mark and I really thought would be helpful first, because I've actually talked to a lot of originators. When I ask them, hey, do you know about the NAR settlement? Yeah, I know about it. Great. Tell me about the changes. And they go, like that face. Let me give you a resource, because you're going to get this question 1,000 times over the next 6 months. Okay. So let me share with you the best resource that I've been able to clearly articulate the changes. And let's make sure everybody's on the same page and understands. I will drop this in the chat right now. This is straight from NAR. Okay. So, sometimes we're worried.
Hey, buddy, we're seeing your OneNote and not the actual presentation with just the links. So can you share maybe the NAR?
You're asking for a lot, but I think I can help. All right. There you go.
Bring home milk and bread.
All right. So the link to this is now in the chat, team. And this came straight from NAR. So I wouldn't imagine you're going to have any realtor who's going to have a problem with you sharing this. But here's what NAR has saying. Here's what this means for home buyers. All right. It says you will sign a written agreement with your agent before touring a home. Before signing this agreement, you should ensure it reflects the terms you have negotiated. So they are, similar to Dodd-Frank, right? We had the loan estimate, and then the CD and the CFPB was talking about you should negotiate the terms of your loan based on these documents. That's the same undertone that we're getting here. And that's what the DOJ wanted. The Department of Justice wanted two things. One, we want the buyer's commission and the seller's commission separated. We want those decoupled, is what they said in their statement. And we want a clear, conspicuous communication of what the buyer's fees are for representation, and that they can be negotiated. Because what the DOJ was essentially saying was, this is an anti-competitive practice, because you're essentially forcing sellers to pay for the buyer's representation, and then you're just putting it into the cost of the home, which is essentially a buyer's fee, but the buyer doesn't have any opportunity to shop for the best representation and best fee. So that's what this guidance is saying. It says negotiated with your agent, and that you understand exactly what services and value will be provided and for how much. The buyer agreement, which is the buyer representation agreement, the buyer broker agreement, must include 4 components concerning compensation. 1, a specific and conspicuous disclosure of the amount or rate of compensation the real estate agent will receive, or how this amount will be determined. Compensation that is objective. Example, X dollar flat fee, X percent, X dollars per hour, and not open-ended, meaning that it cannot be buyer broker compensation shall be whatever the amount the seller is offering to the buyer. So a lot of people have said, well, if a buyer broker signs a compensation agreement or representation agreement with a buyer that says 3%, and then the seller is only going to pay 1%, can't the buyer broker just cancel the first agreement and sign a new agreement for 1%? That is not what this guidance says. So will that happen in the market? Perhaps, but trust me, that is a workaround. And did plaintiff attorneys not just make $500 million in legal settlements from impropriety around this topic? Do you think the DOJ is not going to be investigating those things? Like, I would not want to be the realtor or the owner of the real estate company that had realtors doing that stuff, because it goes against the spirit of what this whole settlement's about. 3, a term that prohibits the agent from receiving compensation, meaning a term in the agreement, right? It has to spell it out, from receiving compensation for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed in the agreement with the buyer. That means the realtor can't get paid any other way. There can't be any other back scratches. It's clear, it's conspicuous, it's agreed upon, it is objective, not subjective, and they can't be paid any other way. And a conspicuous statement that broker fees and commissions are fully negotiable and not set by law.
They're fully what? They're fully what, Josh?
Negotiable.
Got it. Just making sure.
To negotiate, negotiable. Written agreement apply to both in-person and live virtual home tours. That was a new one. I hadn't thought of that. You do not need a written agreement if you're just speaking to an agent or visiting an open house. And the seller may agree to offer compensation to your agent. That's the crux of this. And you can still accept concessions from a seller. But look, it's very clear to me. It's extraordinarily clear to me that the intention behind this and the settlement that happened with the NAR was, yes, from pressure from the plaintiff attorneys, but it was also pressure from the DOJ, because the DOJ came in and said, nope, this initial settlement doesn't have enough teeth. We want this to go farther. We want these commissions decoupled. We want the compensation to the buyer's agent spelled out to the buyer. It is the buyer's responsibility to pay those fees. You might get a credit if you can negotiate with the seller to pay those. And they want it to be similar to how the LE was treated in the mortgage world, where this is now negotiable terms and people can shop based on price and value. All right, guys, let me take a breath. What are your thoughts around that?
Don, I'll let you go first.
Well, thank you for one. Clarifying. You see some comments already from Nick and others that are like, what are the exact details? Because it's been thrown around a lot. I mean, everybody's got their interpretations. I've been to multiple brokers, even interpreting different ways, but it's spelled out pretty clearly what you can and can't do. And a lot of you on this call with me are like, okay, good. It's really nice to have that link and to clarify all these things, so there isn't, speculation on it. You need to know exactly how it works and how to properly set it up. So that was awesome to go into the nuts and bolts, because we do need to understand it. You can't just work around it. You need to fully understand it, and it's not that much understanding. You look at it's a paragraph really. So I would reread that 4 or 5 times personally. Anybody on this call and say, I get it. I understand it, because the agents or the brokers are going to battle you a little bit with it. You can say, no, here's the written rule, and I'll even send it to you if you want.
Yeah.
So well done.
I think the same thing. Josh actually recorded a 6-minute YouTube on this where he presented basically this NAR settlement. And I was listening to it on a walk the other day, and it was basically what you guys just heard. And if you guys think that that is helpful, watching Josh do this a couple of different times, I'm sure that I could coax him into sending it to you, because I knew everything about this lawsuit, or so I thought, but it's very succinct and there's 4 points. And so what I would tell you is, you guys, if you're behind, if you didn't know that this thing existed, if you're not really sure about the lawsuit and you needed the pressure of this moment to really get ready, I want you to have the focus that Josh said, like no days off, like now it's time to get to work. But this is not that hard. You simply say, look, Mr. So-and-so, I'm so glad that you asked the questions. There's actually 4 key things, and here's what they are. It's negotiable. Here's my fee. Here's what I do. I think I'm worth it. Does that resonate with you? Yes. Cool. Here's the buyer representation agreement. I'd love for you to sign it. Let's take this for a spin for 3 months, and we'll get feedback every week as we go along. If there's things that I can do to better your circumstances, great. And I think you guys are so used to these conversations where you get price objections, you get value objections. You're so much better than your realtor partners. But if you just get this lawsuit down and get rid of the noise and get to work on just getting at bats, like get after it, like get more at bats, get no's. I'm reading this book by Alex Hormozi. Does anybody know who Alex Hormozi is? Man, what an incredible inspiration. There's so much in there. Like I'm having to because I'm like Mr., while I'm working out or on the treadmill, listening at 1.5 speed, trying to get through the book. But it just made me realize like that guy's like, get as many no's as you can as soon as possible. And I don't know about you guys, but my ego has been bruised, and I've been wallowing in this freaking, I'm only doing such and such, and I'm really a $100 million a year producer. And like, it's hurt my ego. And I'm walking around in this shit storm or, depression storm, showing up as like 3/4 of the best version of myself because of what we've been through. And like Josh said, hang that title up. Like now it's time to like get out there and get after it and get some at bats. Right. And if you do that, I promise you, you're going to every day just show up a little bit better and a little bit better. And before you know it, you're going to be king of the hill, because your agents do not want to get out there and get uncomfortable. They're way back at the beginning of the learning curve, right? You're so far ahead of them and they need you. So seek out this opportunity to get after it. Like, learn Josh's 6-minute video, play it a few times, and then go present it to actual clients. If you do that, I promise you, you will be 50, 60, 70% ahead of your competition.
And
love that, Mark. Nicely said. Only real quick before you jump in, Josh, is just, this is actually another opportunity that we speak on. Like, almost all high producers have a certain way of building relationships without help, because it's really relationship building. Without building relationship, you're transactional, and that never bodes to growing your business. This is actually an opportunity to ask what's important about buying the home. We know we should always ask that, but it always leads to, what's your rate? And nobody likes that anyways. Sorry, you don't. And you're comparing a commodity. Instead, now I believe it'll force us to now ask more in-depth questions. What's important about the home? What's your timing? Is it the property? Is it the school zone? Is it the kitchen? Is it the garage? What is your wife looking for? What is your husband looking for? What does Johnny and Sarah want in the yard? Do they want a backyard? All those things, you say, this is what's important about the transaction, and this is what I'm going to help you provide. And if you go down that path, it becomes more emotional, and that you're going to provide what their ultimate goal is buying the right home and getting in that home. And I will help you negotiate. That will help you find the right way to finance it, depending on what the offer is from the seller. And I'll make sure that you get your offer accepted. That's my go-to, so there's so many other values that you can provide versus just rate.
Well said. Super well said. Okay. So I think everybody has a little bit of a better construct around what exactly these changes are. And, I was listening to an interview yesterday with Tom Ferry, and Tom said, look, this isn't going to be a one-day event. Like, the world isn't going to change on August 18th. These things are going to unfold over the next 6 months, but you're either going to be behind the curve or ahead of the curve. And we want to know more about this settlement than our clients do. I want to know more about it than our agents do. And we need to be thinking in terms of, like, just as simple as, look, the buyer agent commission is now a buyer closing cost. It now shows up on the buyer's side of the settlement statement, which means it needs to start showing up on your LEs, which means it needs to start being included in your total cost analysis. And then we need to be thinking about, well, wait a minute, you're buying in an area where there is negative inventory, and are you sure we're going to get you've got a 3% buyer agent compensation agreement here? And we need to be asking about that at pre-approval. Hey, Mark, I'm pre-approving Dawn. It looks like we're going to be tight between the big down payment and the reserve requirements and the reserves for his investment properties. Can you tell me what's the compensation agreement? Yeah, I'll send that over to you. Cool. I can tell you right now, I'm going to need this amount of concession, or we're going to be in a reserve issue. We need to be thinking about that. Like I'm thinking about buyer agent compensation almost like a transfer tax. Don't mess it up. It's going to be painful. And if you do, you're going to be issuing a lender credit for it. We need to be thinking farther down the field than our realtor partners, because our realtor partners aren't thinking about how that's going to impact automated underwriting. They're not out there. Well, I thought I was going to get 3%. That's my buyer representation agreement. I only got 1. They are not thinking, oh my gosh, that's going to throw off DULP. Oh my gosh, that's going to minimize my reserve. So we have to be ahead of them. That's our fiduciary responsibility. All right, let me jump into...
Wait, Josh, one point that came up for me that I wanted to emphasize. Dude, Don, Josh, do you wish that you could go back to when you first started in this business and keep a super tight CRM and database?
Oh,
it's the number one thing that all of us go, I should have just babysat that.
Everyone says that.
And I would be, 3-4 times richer for sure.
Yeah. All of us, right? This is a clean slate. So what Josh just said, like, you have the ability with your realtor partners to create statistics. Josh and I, 100% of the time so far, our clients have always gotten the commissions handled by the seller. we have 100% record. I don't think that there's a lender realtor team out there that can say the same thing. And I'll show you exactly how we do it. Do you want to make sure that you don't have to pay for it out of pocket? Now, if you start now and you keep your stats, maybe it's 100% and then it's 99 and then it's 89. But if you're keeping your stats, you will have the stats. Like, don't mess this up. This is your opportunity it's a brand new frontier. So keep your acceptance rates, keep your stats on how many times you get this negotiated, keep the stats on how many times you got the buyer's agent to, come in and maybe you gave a credit and you took care of it. But make sure you're keeping those stats. Don't get 2 years down the road where your competition has all of these things and they're like, oh man, yeah, I went with them because they have 100% acceptance rate.
Such a great call. Like if you've got an Excel spreadsheet running of all of your customers, now's time to add that column. Did I get concessions or not? If you have a CRM that tracks it, if you don't, open Excel and just start it right now. Dawn and Mark are my clients. We got X percentage of concessions and keep that running. That's going to be a really valuable stat. Okay, good call out, Mark. That's a great coach. That's how you know you're a great coach right there, Mark. Way to go.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. So team, as I see it, and there are variations of this, but fundamentally, there's only 4 ways to pay buyer agent compensation. So let's go through those really quickly and answer any questions. Number 1, the seller can pay the buyer's compensation. This is what we've all been used to because the cooperative compensation rule has been in effect since the mid-90s. So even realtors that have been in the business for 35 years, this is all they know, right? So we've got a $500,000 purchase price, $400,000 loan amount. The payment's $3,052. Cash to close is $111,000, which is your $100,000 down payment, your closing costs, your setup of your escrow fee. There's your down payment, cash to close. No seller paid compensation. Same purchase price, same everything, except you add another $15,000 to the cash to close because now you've got the 3% hitting the buyer. Now, 99 out of 100 agents that I talk to say this isn't going to happen. But I ask you this, what do you think is going to happen to our real estate market when rates go to 5%? Barry, well, on the webinar I was on yesterday, laid out an incredibly articulate argument why the spread between the 10-year treasury and 30-year fixed mortgage rates are going to contract by 100 basis points. He also showed what happens to mortgage rates when the Fed starts cutting. And based on the inflation numbers we've been getting, it's a foregone conclusion from all of the economists I'm reading. There's going to be a September rate cut from the Fed. And then the question is it going to be 25 or 50 basis points? And we got an inflation and a jobs report coming out between now and then. But he showed what happens to mortgage rates once the Fed starts cutting. And his call is mid to low 5s. What do you think is going to happen to the mortgage or the real estate industry when rates hit the mid to low 5s? There's going to be a tsunami of buyers coming in. So if there's a tsunami of buyers coming in and we have few sellers because people still love their 2% mortgage rates, what do you think will happen with supply versus demand? There's going to be way more demand than supply. When there's less supply, sellers are less generous. They pay less concessions. Oh, and by the way, New York Times, USA Today, The Economist, everybody's writing articles around this NAR change. I think this is a bigger deal than a lot of people are willing to look at. All right. So this could, this scenario where the seller says no go might happen in a 5% interest rate environment. All right. So what do we do if that happens? Well, there's 2 alternative strategies. A, the seller, the buyer says, all right, I'll pay you $515. And then you give us a concession for 3%, which I can use to pay my buyer agency fees. That's one option, right? That would be a conversation between the buyer's agent and the listing agent. Nope, my buyer wants 500 and they're not paying concessions. Cool. What about if I offer 515? Then can I get concessions? So that's one potential solution. Another potential solution would be, all right, let's add it into the loan amount, right? So instead of doing an 80% LTV, let's do an 83% LTV. So my purchase price stays the same. My loan amount goes up 15 grand. That means my down payment goes down 15 grand, therefore giving me another 15,000 to pay my buyer agent compensation. And what happens in my payment? Look, at the end of the day, the difference here, you bring in $15,000 more dollars, or your payment goes up $91. I'll take the $91. Are you kidding me? Less than $1,000 a year. That's a no-brainer for me. A little more than $1,000 a year, excuse me. Or how about we add it to the loan? Now, this is a little more because we're financing $15,000 more, but you've got a little bit of mortgage insurance. But the difference between no mortgage insurance and 83% LTV with a high FICO score and 2 borrowers is a very small mortgage insurance premium. So that's another strategy. And of course, there's a hybrid between these two, right? Let's say they don't say no pound sand, I'm not going to pay any compensation. Let's say they say I'll pay 1% compensation. So there could be some variation here, but here's 2 additional ways. If you got a seller who is stuck and saying that's my bottom line, you can not kill a deal, put somebody in a home for only a marginally higher price. And oh, by the way, if I could add another option over here on my TCA, I would show them what this is going to look like when I refinance their home next year at 5.5%. Guys, let me have you jump in with some questions or feedback. Yes, I'll share the link.
Yeah. So again, I think while this might sound really elementary to you guys, you're grossly underestimating how helpful this frame is for your realtor partners. If your realtor partners know that they can say, hey, this is how I'm going to protect you, energy, empathy. I know my clients' big fear is that they're going to have to come out of pocket for this. And I've got a partner, Josh Mettle. We already have this all figured out. Let me show you what our plan A is, our plan B, and our plan C. Here's our whole plan. And when you go, and let's just say at the end of the day, they're like, I don't know, whatever objection they're going to say. Well, hey, you know what? So-and-so down the street also sold 557,000 homes last year. He's the best realtor in the world, and he's going to do it for 2%. Okay. What's his plan, right? What's his process? No one has a written plan. No one has a written process. No one has a presentation. So getting your realtors on board to just be in this with you and in tandem is going to strengthen your position in the race, right? Because if they go and interview another realtor and they haven't gone through these things, they haven't said, here's how I've got your back, because they're scared to talk about the commission, what's that client's experience going to be like? I mean, think of yourself if you're a client. Oh, yeah, just tell you whatever you want to hear and then it doesn't happen. That's not going to work too long. You know, like one client has to come out of pocket for $10,000 and that ride's going to be over. The reviews that they have online are not going to be pleasant, right? So I just think like this is a huge opportunity. And I'm telling you, I tested this on agents that I don't know and work with all the time, and they are frothing to meet with me. That's never happened in my career. It's never happened in mortgages. So I just think it's a really good way for you guys to get out there and approach things.
I agree with you, Mark. I mean, look how many people are on the call. We got 60. We've had up to almost 70 people on the call, which is phenomenal, by the way, because there's a lot of noise out there. So kudos to you guys. People know that we should hear from Josh and Mark. So, and you saw how many showed up at our event yesterday, Josh. I mean, during the summer on the first week of school, that was pretty impressive. They need to know more about this and they need our help. And that's the beautiful thing. And being articulated the way you did, Josh, and our team's doing the same thing. We use Mortgage Coach and TCAs as well. The numbers don't lie when you can show them that, hey, we have all these options that could, maybe we'll get the seller to concede. Maybe we can get the price increase. If not, then we can put less down and here's the change of your payment. If not, you can pay me this amount. You know, you have all these options, but at least they can see it in numbers, because maybe for $160 a month, it's worth it to them to get that specific house. But if there's not specifics, then they're like, well, then I don't have the 24K or the extra 20K or whatever it is. You say, well, I know that this house is worth it to me for $125 more a month. Because also the concern, like we talked about yesterday, Josh, with the crew is, okay, maybe this house you really love it. You go, maybe we'll find somebody else, a seller that'll pay your commission. And then you find out that they can't find another house like that for 6 months. Well, now that house just went up another 6%. So, and you're not in that home. So
cost of waiting.
There's pros, exactly, cost of waiting. And then you show them, hey, there's a really good chance your fill rates are going to go down. 95% of anybody pretty educated out there, they're going to go, yes, we fill rates are going down. Okay, let me show you what that looks like. That 128 just went to a payment savings, let alone an extra cost. So there's ways around it as long as you articulate it and are prepared. And the tools are easy. The TCA, as we all know, and if you're not using Mortgage Coach or using MBS Highway, those tools are amazing to use, without a doubt.
Yep. And Don, I want to just add one more thing on that, because you hit the nail on the head. The cost of waiting is really important in this type of scenario. But there's one other thing. Like, people are really good at thinking about, what time do I have to pick up my kid today? What's the date I need to pay my mortgage next month? And when is my winter vacation? Like, we're really good at thinking in days and weeks and months. We're terrible. Humans are not genetically programmed to think in terms of decades. So what I'll always anchor into somebody, and they're like, oh man, I really wanted to keep that payment below $3,000. Don, I get it. Like that I see how that's an important demarcation for you in terms of payment and how you might have to make some cutbacks. But I want you to also understand the upside, the equity, the appreciation that you would be walking away from if you didn't make the decision to make that extra $131 a month. So let's just anticipate that you've got a 4% appreciation rate, and that you are paying down your mortgage over the next 10 years, which is the timeline you said before kids go away to college. You're going to be downsizing. So look what happens to the value of this house. It goes from $500,000 to $740,000, but that's not all, right? In addition to that, you've paid down the mortgage from $415,000 to $354,000, which means that you now have equity of $386,000. So the question is what's the payment difference? Is $131 a month in tightening the belt somewhere else worth an upside of $386,000? And I mean, I don't know another investment, knock on wood, maybe Bitcoin, but I don't know another investment that I can invest $131 a month and walk away with $386,000. So my point there is, we have to be good as advisors to help people get over temporary discomfort or temporary setbacks and friction for long-term gains. And we have to show them that over longer periods of time. So I think that's just an important piece. The cost of waiting and what is the long-term upside you'd be walking away from are the compelling pieces that people need to see. There's a downside to saying no here. There's a cost.
Josh, can you pull up, how much time do we have, guys?
10 minutes.
Okay. Can you pull up the total cost analysis that you had and click on net worth and go to those options again? I just want to point out one thing that helps me in case you guys aren't doing this. I'm sure you are every single time, but sometimes people have an apprehension around that third thing. When you add the compensation to price, it's adding $515,000. The only thing they think about is that they're going to have to pay higher taxes forever on that home and that they're paying a higher price. But check out the home value. Over that 10-year period, it's giving them $22,000 more of net worth. Remember, appreciation comes off of the sales price, and you're setting a new comparable sale for that neighborhood. And so if the appraisal comes in at value, you can't only assign the value to the fear and the bad side. You have to give equal weight to the fact that it's also going to appreciate and give you more value and more net worth. And so this is another thing where if you get somebody who really understands this, and sometimes it falls on deaf ears, I know I'm doing the same presentations you are, but if you point this out and say, look, yes, I hear you, but you're also going to have $20,000 more net worth at the end of this. Would you care to see what I mean? You want
That's interesting, Mark. I hadn't thought about the fact that creates a higher comp, that everything kind of sets the benchmark in your neighborhood.
Neither. That's good stuff.
Oh,
that's new.
For people who understand it, it's an absolute game changer. And like people who are lowballing offers, saying, well, hey, you're not just lowballing and hurting the neighbors in the neighborhood that you're about to go into. And I don't know how well liked you're going to be if you actually got this home at $100,000 below. But let's look at what it does to your net worth. And people are like, wow, that's interesting. So I just think you have to always challenge people, right? The challenger sale, Dave Savage talks about it all the time. You have to challenge them to not just think about the negative side of the equation. You have to think about the positive side too, because that's much more likely to come true.
Great point. Great point. Okay. Team, I want to kind of, I want to make a statement on Momentum Builder, more momentum right now around what I think is going to happen and play out over the next 6 months. And I want to back it up with a little bit of data, and then I want to invite you to something really special. So we talked about mortgage rates going down. We talked about Barry's thesis of getting into the mid fives. We showed you the chart before that every time the economy goes into recession, 100% of the time mortgage rates goes down. We talked about the fact that we've triggered the SOM rule, which 100% of the time since 1960s, we enter a recession. All those things tell me there is a tailwind behind us as it relates to mortgage rates. But we also have this little bit of a headwind, which is this inventory issue. And if you look back all the way to 2003, we're running the lowest inventory in 21 years, except for the inventory in 2023. This is extraordinarily low inventory, and we've been selling homes at 7 and 8%. This all changes when we get to selling homes at 6% and 5%, right? Inventory is going to contract again. And at the same time, we have massive household formations and demand. So if we look back at, what really caused the housing crash, it was the overbuilding, the excess liquidity and easy money printing, and no underwriting standards. But it was also this huge demographic drop off that happened right in 2006 as a carry-on effect from the fact that there was legalized abortion 33 years earlier with Roe versus Wade, and that caused household formations to crash in 2006. So you saw this period of 7 or 8 years here where household formations were right around 500,000. And now household formations have gone up, and 2024 is estimated to have household formations of 1.8 million. Think of that for a minute. 1.8 million children moving out of their parents' homes, 1.8 million new people moving into the country, creating households, and we only have 1 million possible homes for sale. This is the total number of homes for sale in the market right now. And now we put 5% interest rates on top of that. If I add up that equation and I ask myself, what is the probable real estate future? I believe it'll result in less sellers being willing to give money towards the buyer agent compensation because of simple supply and demand. There's going to be more demand than there is supply, which means sellers are going to do what's in their best interest, which is to offer less up in terms of compensation. So if we can kind of see where the puck is going versus seeing where the puck has been, I think our buyer agents need our help. I think our buyer agents need to learn how to create a dynamic buyer presentation that helps them overcome all of the challenges that buyers are going to have in a 5% mortgage rate environment with very low inventory, 1 out of 3 homes being sold in cash, multiple offers on everything. I think they need our help to create a value proposition that gets buyers through those challenges, and in doing so, builds their value and justifies their compensation. And so the team, Mark and myself, Ryan Grant, Danny Harani, Chris Ledley, Tim Brahim, the Loan Atlas team has been hard at work creating what we call a boot camp, and it's called Empowering Buyer Agents Through Chaos. And our goal is to give you all the tools that you need to show up for your buyer agents, to present them with scripts, presentations, buyer questions, everything they need to deepen the relationship with buyers and substantiate them as the buyer agent, the only buyer agent who can navigate that client through that really difficult market. So what I'd like to do is this. We have created a set of scripts for you based on the exactly what to say framework from Phil M. Jones. So I'll just quickly share my screen and show this. This is a free download. Everybody can go here and download these scripts. And I'll drop a link here in the chat in a minute. But it just basically gives you a quick overview. Phil Jones is a genius. He has a very simple 3-step process for maximum influence. He talked about this at an event that I was at, and I was so incredibly impressed. I read his book. I read his book for realtors. And then we went through and we created realtor scripts to help realtors use these magic words to overcome objections from buyers. So if a buyer says, I'm not sure I'm willing to pay you a 3% compensation if I don't know the seller is going to pay it. Okay, cool. Well, here's a whole set of scripts using magic words that buyer agents can employ. And my thinking around this, team, is you bring this value to your buyer agents and you become part of the solution. You start working on those things with them with those scripts. In addition to that, go ahead, Mark, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, you know, for me, even helping to create this boot camp and being a part of it, what I'll tell you is if you can immerse yourself in this, the group gets so tight and they really challenge one another, and it really helps me implement. So if you're having trouble like getting out there and knowing exactly what to say and how to like go about it, these boot camps have been amazing. It's probably the best help I've gotten, and I've been on the teaching side to get out and actually do the stuff that I know I'm supposed to do. So if you're struggling and you have a little bit of that, you know, that hangover, you know, I don't know what else to call it. Like, this is a really great team. It's a great environment. It's a really tight-knit group that's going to help you get out there and do the things that you know you're supposed to do.
So if you follow this QR code, you're going to be able to download the scripts that we created for you. And we'll also, are you seeing the QR code, Mark?
Yep.
Cool. And then we'll also invite you to a webinar we're putting on August 29th. This is a free webinar, by the way. So the webinar on August 29th is going to walk you through this empowering buyer agent through chaos. It's a whole presentation that we've created for buyer agents, and we're going to role play it, and we're going to give you more scripts at the webinar. So I hope you will join us. If you follow that QR code, you'll find your ability to download the scripts here. And if you scroll down, this is where you will register for the Empowering Buyer Agents Through Chaos workshop that we're going to do on August 29th. Now, let me say something about August 29th. August 29th is going to be an extraordinary day because at 10 a.m., if I got that right, let me just double check my notes. Yeah, at 10 a.m., we're going to be putting on our Empowering Buyer Agents Through Chaos workshop. At 11 a.m., back here on your More Momentum webinar, there's going to be Taylor Stork, and Taylor Stork is going to be talking about the NAR settlement changes, the impact and opportunity. So my suggestion to you is this. Look, if you want to go from 0 to 100 and be more knowledgeable than anybody else, block out 2 hours on August 29th. Come to our webinar where we're going to show you the actual consultation that you and a buyer's agent could give to a buyer to help build value and help them be comfortable signing a buyer representation agreement. And then come straight over to More Momentum, watch that presentation with Taylor Stork. And I promise you, if you do those two things, if that's your takeaway from this, you'll be more knowledgeable than 99% of the originators in the entire industry.
Boom. Wow, that's a mic drop. Oh my goodness. It is. I mean, it's true value. It's something we all need to do. We all need to go. We're putting our team, as you know, through the boot camp. So if you're not, you're going to let your competitors have an advantage, huge advantage. And I told my team, and we were very honest, and we told, you know, basically, if you're prepared, you'll shout from the rooftops that I have a plan. I have a way to support you. I have a way to help you, because you have a plan in place, and it's a huge advantage, as opposed to hiding in the weeds, sticking your head in the sand and hoping, which is not a strategy, as we know. Hope is not a strategy. This is a great opportunity, and thank you for that, Josh. And
hey,
Mark?
You're very welcome, team. And Don, it's a pleasure to be here with this community. If I leave you with one thing, I want you to be excited. Like, I see this as the greatest opportunity our industry has ever had. I know we're tired. I know it's been a long race. Grab your freaking Gatorade and your ginkgo biloba and get back in the game. Like, just suck this stuff up. Now is the time. Practice the scripts. come to the webinar, engage your buyer agents. It is going to be a phenomenal year ahead, but you got to turn that switch in your head first before your external results are going to come. So get excited. This is going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
Really? Yeah. We can tell you're excited. Mark's excited. I'm excited.
Game on.
Yeah.
Game on. Put me
in,
Coach.
Guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And like Josh said, just get out there and fail a few times. Like, just fall on your face really quick and a lot more than anybody else. I promise you. Keep your stats. Keep your stats.
I love that. Love that.
Slate.
Gina and I always brag about that. We fail more than anyone. That's what helps us advance.
Love it, man.
Because rock stars, you think everybody is a rock star and always been a rock star. That's not true. I mean, Starbucks is a 25-year overnight sensation. You know, you don't know. You just got to put the time in and the effort. And this is a great opportunity. So thank you very much, guys. And for those on the call, we'd love you to be part of this community so everybody can help each other. Go ahead, Josh.
Can I answer a quick question? Chris put something in.
Yep. She said, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. If an agent buyer signs at 3% to a buyer's agent, offer submitted, and the seller is offering 2%, then the buyer's agent can sign a new buyer broker at 2% and resubmit to the listing agent. So the way that I understand this is I don't even think you need a new buyer broker. I think you can go down. You just cannot go up. So if it's at 3 and he says, hey, I'll negotiate this down to 2, you are okay. That's how I understand it.
I understand the buyer's on the hook for that extra 1%.
Okay.
So I have not seen a legal opinion that says that you can rewrite your agreement. It would make sense in my head that the client could get the benefit. Maybe even they could do like, they could charge the client the 3% per the agreement and then do a realtor credit. But I haven't heard an attorney say that yet. So I'm not 100% sure on that. What I do know 100% for sure is if they find a house that's paying 3 and they signed with the buyer 2, then that extra 1% comes to the buyer and is an offset for their closing costs. I just haven't heard an attorney opinion or talk about the other one. So I still have a question in my mind on that.
Good question, though. Very good question.
Yeah, I definitely would want the legal help. That's just what I've gathered from context.
Yeah, makes sense. Hey, everybody, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Dawn, for having us. Thank you, Sonia.
All right. And we're going to share with you real quick how you can be part of our community because we need to do this together. Isn't this great that you have these great professionals? We do it every week. Plus, we have our website. We have our Facebook page. Next week is Brian Covey. You guys love him. He's a stud. We're talking about are you fit for success? And I know you're all about that, Josh, because I saw both of you beasts in the gym. So that's going to be a great call. Really good call.
Love Brian.
Awesome. And then join our Momentum Builder community. Get involved. Download our app. It gives you all the tools and resources in one app. And then join our community by getting involved with our Facebook group, our Instagram, our LinkedIn. That way you're not on your own. Don't be on an island. Be part of our group. Be part of the tribe. There you go. All right, everyone. Thank you for being part of our show today. There it is. Join our private Facebook group and get involved. Be engaged and be our friends. Love you all. Thank you, Josh and Mark. That was one of the best calls we've had in quite some time.